Okay, we are live on the MMA Corner News Show. I know it's been a while, probably since April. I think me and Josh did the Pacquiao-Mayweather predictions. I think that's the last time you guys saw us. A little break, but we're back. We're going to try and make this a weekly thing every Monday, 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time every Monday. Josh isn't here today. Usually you see his ugly mug where I'm sitting, but I got the hosting duty today. With me is, he hasn't done it before, but he's killing it on the MMA Corner, new interview coordinator, Jeremy Klump. He is going to bring some great insight. He's interviewing some who's who in MMA, up and coming, and some pretty significant UFC fighters. So great to have him, and he'll be a mainstay. So what's up, Jeremy?
How you doing? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I get to be on this for the first time, and I'm looking forward to tuning in on Mondays with everyone and doing the show.
Yeah, so no sponsors to go through today, so we're just going to jump right in. This is the news show. We're going to, and down the line, we'll probably bring back the prediction show. Maybe not this week, but for at least for all the major UFC pay-per-views, all the major Bellator shows, any of huge boxing, we'll probably come back for Canelo Cotto. We'll do the prediction show, post-fight show right after each event, the day after. But for now, this is the news show. So we're going to go over the week that was, or pretty much the month that was, since we didn't do in the last few weeks. So right off the bat, biggest news of the last week is former UFC middleweight champion, pound-for-pound king, arguably the greatest fighter of all time. In my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time, Anderson Silva, is banned for 1 year following his failed post-fight drug test, following his decision win over Nick Diaz at UFC 183. We'll kick it over to Jeremy. I had to collect my thoughts on this one. I'm trying to be unbiased. So, Jeremy, you're up first. What are your thoughts on not just Anderson's drug test, but also his legacy and the very bizarre Nevada State Athletic Commission hearing that was last week or earlier this week? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, first off, I mean, I got to stop you because John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. We gotta mark that down. But you know, it's just one of those things. People, you know, they always want to go on people for cheating, and I mean, he failed his drug test. It is what it is. I know some people, they were trying to say it was something with his fertility drug or something like that going on. But, you know, I'm fine with it. I'm always for, you know, if you get caught cheating, you know, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And, you know, he got caught, and it is what it is. It's unfortunate because, like you said, his legacy, he's arguably the greatest fighter of all time. I could sit here and defend John Jones because I'm from Ithaca and all that, but Anderson Silva is Anderson Silva. He's a big-time fighter. And it's a shame for the sport. It hurts the sport to have someone of his stature and, you know, just not fighting right now in a year suspension. So you can kind of touch back on it and what you think with the whole, you know, hearing and all that.
Yeah, and you pointed out the interesting part of, for a while, like Anderson failed in January 2015 following his January, I believe it was the 31st when he beat Nick Diaz, and then he failed, and then they kept extending the hearing, like when it was going to happen. They kept postponing it, and then it finally happens, and he pretty much had no defense. His defense was terrible. I don't even think they brought up the fertility. It was like a sexual performance drug, a tainted sexual performance drug that his agent said. And I don't even think they brought that up at the hearing. I might have missed it. I was tuned in and out of it. But it was very bizarre. He basically had 6 to 8 months to prepare a defense, and his defense was pretty much I plead the fifth, which doesn't check out. It was a very bizarre. Anderson Silva can barely speak English as it is. He went through 2 translators, said he wasn't satisfied with one of them. So what got lost in translation, I leave up to the people who can actually speak Portuguese. But I agree with you. If you can't take the punishment, don't do it in the first place. And what was really interesting to me, which I think was the quote of the day, maybe the quote of the year, maybe the quote in the history of MMA, is the commission asked him, Anderson, is this the first time you'd ever been tested before or after, whatever? He said yes, which is a very big red flag, because that opens up like all sorts of did he do drugs during his like 10-fight, whatever, 18-fight win streak, all his title defenses. But we know for a fact Chael Sonnen did, and he beat him. We know for a fact Nate Marquardt and Dan Henderson, all those people were on whatever. But Anderson's big thing was he was always clean when he did it. He was the pure martial artist, and now even that's under question. So going into this, I believed that his doctor had given him steroids to heal his shattered leg, and Anderson didn't know it was steroids. You know, it was just a shot. I mean, I know people who have broken their arms and dislocated their shoulders and had surgery, and the doctors do inject you with muscle growing steroids so your muscle can grow back into place and be strong again. Who knows if Anderson did that? That's what I believe. But following that hearing, I don't know what to think anymore. It's very sad. I didn't like Anderson's defense. It was basically, like I said, plead the fifth. And in my mind, he was one of the greatest, one of my all-time favorites to watch. It was truly a pleasure to watch him, not only live, but just talk to him. And it's sad. And I agree with you. John Jones could very well be the greatest of all time, especially now that Anderson's legacy is in question. But it's just a sad state of affairs. It's terrible for mixed martial arts. It's terrible for the UFC, and we'll have to see where it goes.
I think one interesting thing that you talked about was, how do we know if he wasn't doing it before? And one thing that we wanted to talk about that we talked about before the show was Tim Kennedy talking about, the state of MMA. And one thing he said in one of his interviews, I think he said something along the lines that the UFC is trying to protect guys who used to do steroids by putting them up against guys who used to do steroids because they're getting beat up, or he said something like that. And then I noticed that he called out Anderson Silva, said he'd like to fight him. He'd come back, he'd get off the couch to fight him. So that is kind of an interesting thing. You don't know if during that time when he was on that huge run, if he was doing steroids. So it's kind of a shame to sit here and now we have to debate in our minds, was he doing steroids? It's a shame. It is.
And honestly, Tim Kennedy says a lot of things. He complains a lot. So him complaining is nothing new, but I do agree with you. It is very interesting that he would bring that up, especially around now. And I can't name one person that wouldn't get off the couch to fight Anderson Silva, especially now that he's pushing 40. If he did do drugs, he doesn't have him in the system now. So who wouldn't want to fight a close pushing 40 Anderson who's not on his drugs that made him who he is? I can't think of anybody. Maybe now he's not even top 5. For all we know, he might be somewhere between 10 and 5 when he's not on his drugs. So whatever Tim Kennedy says, I'll just take with a grain of salt anyway because he complains a lot. But I agree with you to that. But we're not going to stick on Anderson Silva the whole time because we can honestly talk about him for a whole hour, just his legacy and drugs. But we're going to move on. Speaking of failed drug tests, and not that she did fail, but it seems Ronda Rousey is in the news, not just in the bubble of mixed martial arts bubble, but she's in Time Magazine. She's in Rolling Stone. She's on Yahoo Beauty. She beat Betchko Head. That's a whole other thing. She's talking trash still. God bless her. But do you want to see Cyborg versus Rousey? Or better yet, obviously everybody wants to see that, but do you think that fight will happen? And if you do think it happens, what weight class do you think it happens?
I mean, obviously, I'm like everyone else. I want to see it happen just because, watching Rousey beat people in, a minute under a minute every time. It's great, but at the same time, it's like we do want to see the challenge. We want to see Ronda Rousey actually have to, get tested like she did that one time against Miesha Tate for a little. But, I think it'll happen. And I think if it does happen, it'll be at 135 because I don't see Rousey and her group moving up. I think they're going to make her cut the weight because of the steroid allegations, all that stuff. And obviously she failed the test before. And I just feel that they're not going to budge on that. They want her to cut down. And if she's not going to cut down, then she's going to go Miesha Tate third time, which we'll see how that goes. I'd rather see Amanda Nunes in there instead, or however you say her name. But honestly, I think it's going to happen at 135 if it's going to happen. I want to see it happen. If Rousey wanted to prove she's the best, I'd like to see her move up if Cyborg's not going to move down, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should happen at 135, especially if Cyborg wants to fight in the UFC because there is no weight class above 135 for women. If there was a 145-pound division and Cyborg was the champ, then I think you have to make the 140-pound catch weight. I mean, it is a little weird that back when Anderson and GSP were just like 1 and 2 in the weight in the world. They talked about Anderson and him doing a catch weight at like 180 because Anderson Silva used to fight at 170 back in Pride, and now they're talking. Now they're not even considering a catch weight with Cyborg, and it has to do with the drugs. If she was 100% clean her whole career and she just was putting people away viciously, I think Rousey and the UFC would make that 140-pound catch weight. But I agree, just because she failed the drug test, I think she should fight Rousey at 135, and I think she should make 135 for one fight before she fights Rousey. And the thing she has going for her is she has George Lockhart in her corner. Who everybody talks about Mike Dolce is when it comes to nutrition with MMA, but I think George Lockhart is the best. He has it down to his science. Anybody who talks to them just immediately thinks knows more about cutting weight than they 100 times more than cutting weight than they ever thought of, and all this stuff. So I think she can make the weight 135 pounds. I think she's going to need a few months. I think she should fight one time at 135, maybe in Invicta against even a tomato. I don't even care if she fights a tomato can. She doesn't even have to fight. If she can just make 135, take a picture, maybe run 25 minutes on a treadmill after cutting 135 pounds, and cool, throw her in with Rousey. But I want to see her make 135 because the worst thing I can think of is if they book the fight and Cyborg comes in weighing 138, sucked in, looking terrible, and the fight isn't even for the title. I don't want to see that. I want to see Cyborg make 135. Doesn't even have to fight. Just prove you can make it. Get George Lockhart to film her, make a documentary about it, throw it on Fox Sports, and I'd be good with it. What about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that if she did go 135 for the first time against Rousey, we could see another 35-second fight. We don't want to see someone drain, no energy. But if she does go 135 for one fight and then does get booked against Rousey, what's your prediction? Who do you got here, Rousey or Cyborg?
Oh man. I talked with this about Josh on his Mile High Sports radio show, and for those that didn't hear it, I think if this fight had happened in 2012, 2010, I think Cyborg wins. Not easily, but I think Cyborg does win. I mean, she's Rousey's putting people away with knockouts, but Cyborg's wins are just violence, and you can just see the ferociousness on her. She's a Muay Thai. She's a stand-up guy, not a ground guy. I mean, she does have the ground. She's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but she is a violent that Ronda Rousey is not. Ronda Rousey is she'll knock you out, TKO you, submit you, but she's not gonna put your nose on the other side of your face like Cyborg is. If this fight had happened a few years ago, I would pick Cyborg, but she's not getting any younger. She hasn't cut to 135. I saw a picture of her standing next to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I even saw a picture of her standing next to Kat Zingano, and she looked like she outweighed them by 40 pounds. So she's not getting younger. She's never cut 135. Ronda Rousey is looking like the pound-for-pound best right now, not even just the women's, but in MMA. So I think Rousey wins, but if you had asked me a few years ago, I would have picked Cyborg. What about you?
I think Rousey would win right now. There's no more momentum for a fighter. She just has everyone behind her. I think it might have been you or someone on Facebook, some MMA guy that I follow. They put up a picture, and it was like a picture in the trash of an old athlete, and then it was Ronda Rousey, and it was like how she's changing sports for girls all around the world and women all around the world. Everyone's looking up to her. And I just think, with everyone behind her and all that, she just come out going crazy with all the talk that's been out. Usually you see what happens when people talk bad about her or talk up before a fight. She's the one who ends it. She talks with them, but when it comes to fight day,
I don't know if she would come out guns blazing against Cyborg, only because no one in the 135-pound division has as much power as her, and Rousey knows that she can swarm them fast. They're going to sleep or making a mistake, and she's tossing them. I don't know if Rousey rushes Cyborg, that might play right into Cyborg's hands, as she is a go-forward kind of person. And, yeah, Rousey can toss you around, but she might not toss Cyborg, who is a Muay Thai specialist. And when you clinch up with someone that much stronger and that much bigger than you who exceeds in the clinch, I don't know if Cyborg's going to play that game. Rousey is going to play that game. She might try and take it down early. She might see if Cyborg comes sprinting across the cage, for all we know, Rousey's the one that's going to counter with a hip toss. So it's going to be interesting. Only way we're going to know is when it happens. I think it'll happen UFC 200. I think it'll happen UFC 200. Same card as John Jones' return. Maybe Conor McGregor, Aldo too, if Conor beats Aldo, because they're going to give him a rematch. But we'll get into that later on. So, but anyway. Keeping on the Rousey train, you talked about it a little bit. Miesha Tate is the number one contender. If Cyborg cannot make 135 or if they don't book it, Jeremy's shaking his head. I talked to Blaine about it. He hates the decision. I like the matchup simply for the fact that I was at both Rousey and Tate fights. Tate was way too emotional in the first one, got armbarred immediately. I was at the next one. She looks better than anybody against Rousey, better than anyone has. And while nobody likes third fight, if the one fighter has won so dominantly both times, But the facts of the matter is Rousey was not the star she was in Strikeforce as she is now. So no one saw that fight. So I'm not even like I'm counting that fight, but I'm not counting that fight. Even the second Rousey fight, she was the co-main event. People were tuning in to see Silva Weidman. Rousey was a star, but not Rolling Stone, Time Magazine, all that kind of star yet. More people are going to watch this fight now because of Rousey. And you saw against Jessica Eye that Tate has that overhand right now. She's back in Extreme Couture. She's better than ever. And while nobody wants to watch someone who's already 0-2, she's won 4 straight in the 135-pound division. You talked about I can't remember who you said. I'm blanking on her name right now. Amanda Nunes. But she could have beaten Zingano, but the fact of the matter is she didn't. She got finished by Zingano. She wins one against McMahon. She should get the next one. Maybe match her up with, maybe give her a rematch against Zingano. She might take that. She wants to avenge the loss, but I have no problem with Miesha Tate Rousey 3. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but you can't deny someone who's won 4 straight in such a shallow division.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. One thing that just clicked in my head, I didn't think about until honestly right now, is you talked about, Cyborg, maybe she should fight one time, 135, and then fight Rousey. So then maybe what they could do is maybe have Nunes fight Tate, and then whoever wins that fight can get Rousey, but then say Cyborg does make the weight, so then we can get Rousey and wait for Cyborg if she's available. I don't know. Just thought about it now. Maybe it's crazy and it's just a fantasy in my head right now because I want to see Rousey Cyborg, and
it's true. And
Tate Rousey 3.
The only thing I would say that would put it that the UFC would not do that is because the UFC's bantamweight division, women's bantamweight division, is so shallow. It's basically the Ronda Rousey show. I firmly believe if Ronda Rousey was not a fighter, that division would not exist in the UFC because you're seeing how much better she is than even like it's Rousey, Tate, and then everybody else is on the floor right now. So I don't think like right now Amanda Nunes is a contender. They're not going to want to feed her to Cyborg and have her get knocked out. I think Cyborg should fight someone they know she can be. Given Nunes, someone coming off a win, like a legitimate, maybe the winner of Jessica and Juliana Pena. That's that in Houston, I believe, or maybe 190. I can't remember. It's 191 or 192. Give her the winner of that one. That could be another #1 contender fight. They'll both be on the 2-fight winning streaks, 3-fight winning streaks. I just don't want to see Cyborg knock off a legitimate contender, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Well, I do agree with you. It would be very exciting. It's in that weird spot where you don't want to lose somebody just because it's so shallow. Anyway, we're gonna move on because we could we could talk about Rousey forever. We're gonna talk about probably the second biggest star in the UFC right now, maybe even the first. I think Rousey's on a whole nother level. She's the biggest superstar the UFC has ever had. Conor McGregor is gonna fight Jose Aldo for the undisputed. They're gonna unify the belts, undisputed. If Blaine was on right now, he could talk about Conor McGregor for 3 hours. Brown nosing that Irish guy the whole time. It's a little ridiculous. I like Conor McGregor. I really like Jose Aldo. I think Jose Aldo doesn't get enough respect. He's a 2-1 underdog as a champion who hasn't lost in a few years. And what people don't realize, if he has this belt at this time next year, I believe he will have broken Anderson Silva's record for the longest title reign in terms of days for a WEC UFC champion combined. And that is unbelievable to think of. If he can beat McGregor, he's going to move up to 155. I don't think Aldo gets enough credit from the UFC or the fans for how spectacular he is. Everybody's writing him off. Everybody's going to say McGregor's going to knock him out. I love Aldo. I love McGregor. If Blaine was here, he would say Aldo is going to get dominated. I think Aldo is going to win. I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I think it's going to be a decision. I think Aldo's going to win. What about you? And do you think 2-1 is a little ridiculous?
It's so ridiculous. This is one thing that I'm heated about it. I understand the UFC wants to ride Conor McGregor, and it's good. It's good for the sport. It is. Fans tune in. Some of my friends that don't even watch MMA, they'll text me, "Hey, when's McGregor fighting? When's he fight?" Which is good. It's great for the sport. But at the same time, like you said, Aldo, come on now. What? No respect. That's horrible. That's ridiculous to me. I just don't understand how. I mean, in my opinion, and Chad Mendez, I think he recently said that if he had a full camp, it would have been different. I 100% agree. I think that Mendez was wrecking him. He was wrecking him. He was doing everything he wanted against him. And I think that's why, McGregor gave him respect after the fight, because he knew, wow, I was getting pushed to my limit there for a little. And, it is to debate about the elbows, if they were illegal or not in that fight. But I just felt Mendes, he took him to the limit. And I don't see McGregor knocking out Aldo at all. I don't see that happening. I think, like you said, it's either going to end by decision. And I would love to see him knock McGregor out. That's me. Sorry, Blaine. I know Blaine's going to watch this one day and be mad, but I would love to see it, because it's just no respect for him. And I think he's going to go out and show that he deserves the respect.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it again. I think Aldo will win. I don't know how he's going to win, but I do think he'll find a way. I mean, you don't get that many title defenses, that many straight victories over the who's who of the featherweight. Like, people, like, if you were watching this and you are just becoming a UFC fan because of McGregor and Rousey the last 2 months, there has never been another UFC featherweight champion. Jose Aldo was the first, and he's never lost it. And no one in the UFC can say that. I mean, I guess you could say Dominic Cruz kind of, but his belt was taken away. He only had a few. Ronda Rousey, again, but she had to win it. Like, they gave Aldo the belt, and, like, that was it. No one else has won. No one else has come. I guess Chad Mendes kind of came close. Mark Hominick at the end of that UFC 129, but Aldo's the only one. McGregor has never faced and will never face another opponent that's as good as Aldo, but I don't think Aldo has fought anybody with the power of McGregor. McGregor is different in the fact that Mendes will knock you out with that one punch, and Aldo will just pick you apart. He'll kick you with legs, elbows, knees, whatever. McGregor hits you. You see that crumpled face on his opponent's face, where they just, like, their will is done. Like, he will attack the body, he'll attack the head. He's taunting you the whole time, and he has a very weird power about him for 145 pounds. And I think that Aldo was tagged a few times. Well, I know he was tagged a few times against Mendes. We've seen him fade late into rounds, like he did against Lamas and he did against Hominick, but those were wrestlers. And if he stands toe-to-toe, McGregor likes to go forward. Aldo is a counter-striker, so it's going to be very interesting. I thought Aldo was going to wipe the floor with McGregor at UFC 189. I was there. I was disappointed I didn't get to see it. But after that performance where McGregor beat Mendes, I think it is a lot closer than I initially believed, but I still think Aldo is going to get the victory.
I agree.
So, staying on that card, that's the main event. The main event in UFC 189, McDonald and Lawler, was the co-main event. And for people who are just becoming MMA fans or simply don't know, because you'd be surprised at how many I don't know. I've talked to UFC fighters who don't know this. The heavier weight class in title fights always has priority on the card. UFC 187, even though it's for the interim belt, Cormier and Johnson was the main event because they're light heavyweight, 205 pounds. Weidman Belfort was the co-main event, even though it wasn't for, not the interim belt, for the vacant belt. Like, Weidman was defending. They're 185 pounds middleweight, so they were co-main event. It's very, very odd that the UFC, it never happened. I think it's only happened once, and that was UFC 189, where Aldo McGregor, 145, had the prominent spot on a card against the 170s. Even more strange, McGregor Aldo is main eventing UFC 194, correct?
I don't know. I think so.
I believe so. 194. Yes.
Yeah. 194. Yep.
They're main eventing 194 over somebody who, the 185-pound title. And mind you, Chris Weidman is the champion, is undefeated, and just dominates fools. And he's the co-main event. The only undefeated champion Ronda Rousey, but we're not going to count Ronda Rousey because we're in the men's division right now. She's on a whole other level in the women's. The only undefeated champion the UFC has, the only one that's just like beaten the greatest of all time. Well, we say greatest because we don't know if he was on drugs or not. Yeah. He's the co-main event. That shows you how important this 145-pound title defense is. But we're going to talk about Rockhold and Weidman. Who do you got, and are you happy it's Rockhold and not Jacare?
Well, first, one thing that comes to mind is, you said Weidman did knock off, one of the greatest of all time, and he was taunting him when he knocked him off. So McGregor better watch himself against Aldo if he's going to be taunting in there, because I hope somehow he catches him. But for that fight, I'm a big Weidman fan. Sadly, I did not get to watch his last fight because I was in Florida with the girlfriend's family, so I didn't get to watch it. But what I did get to do is watch some quick clips of it. he's a beast, man. I love what he does. He's just awesome. And, you know, I'm glad Rockhold got it. I like Rockhold. I just think Weidman is too tough. Weidman's a beast. Like you said, he beat one of the greatest of all time, and I think that he's going to take the fight. And I think he'll win in the first round, and that's kind of, you know, no disrespect to Rockhold in any way. I just think Weidman's great. I really do. I think this will be a big fight for him to show that he's going to start taking, you know, front stage for the UFC and start to become that huge star. He already is the star, but I want him to, you know, be one of the faces of the UFC. I think he'll do it.
Yeah, and I personally did not care who was going to get the middleweight shot. I think Rockhold deserved it, and I think Jacare deserved it. But if Jacare had fought Romero at UFC on Fox instead of Chris Camozzi, because Romero pulled out with injured knee, and even before that, Jacare pulled out with pneumonia for their first fight. If Jacare had beaten Romero in either of those two matchups, I would have given it to Jacare, because him beating Camozzi really does nothing except extend his win streak and keeps him in the title picture. But if he had beat Romero and they had still given the title shot to Rockhold, I would have been a little upset. But as it is, he didn't beat Romero. They never fought. We're going to get to that in a second. I didn't care. I agree with you. I think Weidman's going to win. This is the first non-Brazilian opponent Weidman's had since he knocked out Mark Munoz, so it is a breath of fresh air. I don't want to say that because Machida spoke English, Silva spoke English to an extent, Belfort spoke English, but it's just different when you have two Americans fighting. They're going to talk trash. If it was in Madison Square Garden, it would have been awesome. I wanted this fight out of Prudential Center. Like I said before, he's undefeated. He's the champion, only undefeated champion, not named Ronda Rousey. I think he deserves a fight in his backyard. He's from Long Island, but it's in Las Vegas. He's obviously never lost. He's had great success there specifically, especially in the MGM Grand. I think he's going to win. I like Rockhold. I like Weidman. Whoever wins not the co-main event, the fight before that, Romero and Jacare were booked again. The winner of the main event will fight the winner of that fight. I bet the losers fight. I'm happy with how it turned out, but I do think Weidman's going to win. I think it will be a decision. And honestly, I think that could be a fight of the night. Both of them are incredibly well-rounded. I know Weidman says he's not good anywhere, but I think Rockhold is great everywhere. I think he's spectacular on the ground. I think he's great standing. He's a mixed martial artist. Weidman is a mixed martial artist, and I am very excited for that fight.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. More fight announcements. So Cejudo got a fight. He's going to fight Jussier Formiga. We got Rafael dos Anjos is going to make his first title defense against Cowboy Cerrone in the rematch. We got Johnny Hendricks is going to fight Tyron Woodley. Whether you like that or not, whether you think he deserves a title shot, we'll get into that in a second. Carlos Condit is going to fight Robbie Lawler in Australia. I love it. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if people out there might think Hendricks deserves the title. We'll talk about that. We have all sorts of fight announcements coming up. We got Velasquez. We got Verdun Velasquez 2. I don't know if you like that. I'm not a big fan of it. We got Arlovsky Mir. We got Miocic Rothwell. And then we have the enigma that is Fedor lurking out there. We'll finish the show off with him. But which fight out of all the fight announcements that I named are you looking forward to? And are there any other fights out there that I didn't name or did name that you are equally as excited for?
I gotta be honest, Cowboys. I love Cowboy, man. I'm so excited. I think that's the free card. What is it? UFC.
That's UFC on Fox. It's the last fight card of the year.
Yeah. How awesome is that? Cowboys fighting for free, and he's an animal, man. I don't know if you saw his last interview that he did, shirtless with Budweiser. There's no one better than him in the sport right now, in my opinion. I love everything he does. He always wants to fight. Half the reason he got the fight scheduled that he was saying was that because he was going to jump up, and he said he can't wait that long to fight, and they booked it. So I'm pumped for that fight. And one fight, that I'm pumped for that some people didn't give me too much credit for breaking, which is kind of made me mad. But Paul Felder, man, that's my man. That's my favorite fighter out there. Philadelphia. I'm a big Philly fan. I can't wait for that fight. UFC 191. That's going to be a great fight. It's not the main event. It's not one of those things you're going to see marketed around a lot, but that's going to be a great fight. Paul Felder, back-to-back bonuses now. The loss was a great fight, so I'm excited for that one too. And I'm always going to try to get Felder in a show because Felder's one of my favorite fighters out there. What about you?
Yeah, and I've interviewed Cowboy while he's shirtless and was drinking Budweiser.
That's awesome.
And I must tell you, it is a fun time. He usually has a box of fruit roll-ups close by too. I agree with you. I think Cerrone RDA is spectacular. It's on, well, both of them fought on free TV, and their first fight was on Fox Sports 1. I believe it was the Indianapolis card with Condit beat Campman. It was the second ever fight card on Fox Sports after Shogun Sonnen. Not a lot of people knew what Fox Sports 1 was at the time. It was only about a month old. This fight is on Big Fox, like the basic cable Fox, where everybody in America can watch, and they're the main event. And right now, Anthony Pettis is also trying to get on that card. So I agree with you. I'm very excited for that. RDA's looked like a killer. He lost to Khabib, so he's thrown out there too. Maybe we can get Khabib and Pettis on there somewhere, but who knows? I think Khabib is the uncrowned champion, but that's for a later show. I don't know. That is a whole nother discussion. That's a whole nother can of worms. I don't know who is going to win versus Cowboy versus RDA. I have not made up my mind yet. So I've probably seen Cowboy Cerrone fight more than any other fighter live. And every single time he puts on something spectacular. He was a little banged up in his last fight. I don't know. I'm iffy on if he won that Bendo fight. I don't think he won. But at the end of it, when they announced that he had one, I wasn't upset. It was that close. But I had it for Hendo. So if you don't think he deserves it because he lost that's cool. I get it. But the fact is he won. Only 3 people's opinions count in the world, and it's those 3 judges, and he won. He still won another one after that. He won that fight on like 7 days' notice. I'm very excited for that. And I am not a fan of Velasquez Verdum too. I don't like it. I get why they did it. They need a Hispanic superstar. But in Kane, both of them can speak Spanish. Verdum beat him, but there's that nonsense. Well, it's not nonsense, but Kane fighting in high altitude is pretty much motivated BJ Penn at this time, motivated Anderson Silva. C-level Kane is the next one. I wanted Arlovsky or Stipe to fight. I didn't care who. I think Velasquez winning and then going on basically a 2-year break after hurting every part of his body. I don't think he deserved an immediate rematch, especially because like the last person – he's fought like 3 people in the last 6 years because he's fought JDS 3 times. He's fought Bigfoot twice. And now he's going to fight Verdum for a second time. The last person he did a rematch was Brock Lesnar, and he's retired. And that's when he won the belt. So I don't like it, but I get why they did it. And I wish Arlovsky had gotten the title shot, but that's just me. What about you?
Yeah, going to throw John Jones in there again. I think one big thing with the UFC, Cain Velasquez, they want him to be the champion, like you said. They like that. I think they gave him the rematch. I mean, I remember watching the fight. I think it was Joe Rogan was going crazy that he was losing the fight. He was like, I cannot believe this right now. He was going crazy. So I think that's why the UFC, had to give him the rematch. I agree with you. It could have been Arlovsky, but, I mean, it's set, and it is what it is. I look forward to watching. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still excited for it. Yeah, I'm excited for it. But, I mean, like you said, it could have went someone else. It is what it is. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. I think Cain Velasquez will win. I do. I think, the layoff, like you said, he hurt every part of his body. I think he's going to come back and he's going to win. And he'll get the belt back, and then we'll see where he goes from there.
And I think do you remember like the last time he lost the belt, he lost to JDS, and he didn't get the immediate rematch. His very next fight, he fought Bigfoot in their first fight, and that was one of the bloodiest fights I've ever seen. And none of the blood was Cain Velasquez's fight. I want to see that Cain again, the one that's hungry for his title shot. If you didn't give him the rematch and you put him as like the co-main event of a card, or better yet, give him the main event of a Fox Sports card in San Jose or California where he's from, that Cain Velasquez is going to put on a show. So I get why they did it. Exactly. Cain Velasquez without the belt is a scary man. And he's a scary man when the belt, but he's scary when they took the belt away. So I want to see that Cain Velasquez. I really don't want he got dominated. It's not like it was a flash knockout or it was a close decision. Like he got dominated and he tapped out. And I think Verdum saying, yeah, I'll fight Cain again. Verdum beats Cain at sea level. I think you could say he's top 2, top 3 greatest heavyweights of all time. I think Fedor's the greatest. We'll get into that at the end, like I said. But Verdum would have had submitted Fedor. He would have submitted Big Nog. He would have beaten, I believe he beat Josh Burnett. I don't know if he beat Josh Burnett. I can't remember off the top of my head. He's beating everybody, and he's beating Cain Velasquez twice. I think that puts him on the short list of one of the greatest heavyweights ever. Your opinion? Oh, he beat Overeem, even though that was a light heavyweight.
I'm with you. I agree. Like I said, though, I am really looking forward to it. I think if he does beat him, it'll be awesome. It'll be good for him, good for his legacy. And, you know, I'm just looking forward to the fight. That's all I'm going to say.
You know the UFC is going to want to promote that if Velasquez wins, he's the first 3-time heavyweight champion in the history of the UFC. And what, if I am correct, and don't crucify me, people out there, if I'm wrong, I believe the last 3-time heavyweight champion was some guy in combat sports or some bum named Muhammad Ali. And you know you're going to want to see Cain Velasquez and Muhammad Ali's name next to each other, especially in all the promos. So maybe that's another reason. But who knows? We're moving on. The biggest fight I'm excited for, I said, I know RDA, we talked about RDA and Cerrone. The biggest fight I am excited for, and I bet everybody that loves violence agrees with me, is Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. Whether you think Carlos Condit deserves it or not, I think this is just a fun fight. The UFC is getting all kinds of heat for the Reebok deal, all kinds of heat for drug tests, and Dana White calling 14-year-old doofs on Twitter and whatever. This fight, I believe they made this fight to distract everybody because it came at the time when the UFC was getting crushed by PR, them and Reebok, and they needed something for the fans, and this fight is for the fans. It's in Melbourne, Australia, which has never had a UFC fight. I believe they just passed they just legalized it in Melbourne, which is a huge major metropolitan city. They have a beautiful arena. New York needs to take a page out of them because we need legalized in New York. This is a gift to the fans. I know a lot of people think Johnny Hendricks deserves it, including me, but this is one fight where you can make, in my opinion, that is better. Like Carlos Condit doesn't deserve this, but I like this fight better, and I'm more excited for Lawler Condit.
Yeah, I mean, Lawler McDonald was sick. That was just unreal. I remember I wrote an article. It never got published. I was a little upset about it, but I wrote an article. Everyone was excited for McGregor Aldo. No way. That wasn't the best fight on that card. It was I'm losing my thought. Lawler McDonald. That fight was sick, and it produced. And now look at it. Lawler, every time he fights, he's a beast. He comes out. He's just an animal. And now Condit coming off. He had the ACL, right? That was Woodley
against Woodley.
Yeah. Yeah, he had the ACL, and he's coming back, and he might not deserve it, like people say. It is what it is. Again, I've said that a couple times on here, but it is what it is. The UFC scheduled it, and like you said, fans should be excited for it. It is an exciting fight. It's going to be awesome. Both guys are ready to go. I think that Lawler, he had a tough fight with McDonald. It was a good fight. He won, obviously. I think Condit might take him to his limit here. Condit is a beast. If he didn't tear that ACL, you never know what could have happened. He's a beast.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And the thing that Faraz Zahabi, McDonald's coach, mentioned was that was pretty much the first time McDonald reached championship rounds. I believe it was the second or third round he beat Saffiedine, which I get all these mixed up. That might have been his first main event. I believe it was his first main event. But he didn't even reach main event rounds 4 and 5. This is the first time he reached those last 2 rounds you get in a title fight or main event. And he said, his coach said he was fighting a 3-round fight, but it was a 5-round fight, and he just simply lost. You're not going to have that problem with Carlos Condit. He's fought. He has arguably the best cardio in all of mixed martial arts. He trains in Albuquerque. He runs at 5,000 feet above sea level. He does kickboxing on mountains. He runs triathlons. I'm pretty sure he was voted one of the fittest people in all of New Mexico a few years ago. He went to the distance with Nick Diaz, whether you believe he won that or not. That was 4 years ago, so we're over that. He's gone the distance with GSP. He's gone the distance with a lot of fighters. He went the distance with Johnny Hendricks. He lost, but he still won it. You're not going to run into the cardio problem with him. You're not going to run into the inexperience that McDonald had in main event slots with him. And I think Hendricks beat GSP, but he never really had GSP in trouble. If people don't get that, Hendricks and GSP was very close. And I was cage side for that, and everybody in the media room outside of Dave Meltzer thought Hendricks won. The crowd thought Hendricks won. But he never had him on the ground. He was beating him with points, similar to how he beat Lawler the first time and tried to beat him the second time. Carlos Condit head kicked GSP and sent him flying across the cage and swarmed on top of him and was very close to finishing that fight. That was one of the few times that we really saw St. Pierre hurt. And I think that they're going to show that clip over and over and over and over of him head kicking GSP. There was a main event. It was in GSP's backyard, and props to Condit. He still took it. I love this fight. This is one of the fights, if you had told me this was 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have been excited. I'm even more excited for it now. And who knows what the co-main event is, but nothing is going to win fight of the night when when Lawler and Condit are fighting on the main card. Bouncing off of that, do you have anything else to say about that fight?
I just, like I said, I think Condit's going to take him to his limit. And, this is bold because I'm a big Robbie Lawler fan as well, but I think Condit's going to win. I think a lot of people don't think he deserves this shot, but I think he's going to show he deserves a shot, and he's going to actually win and defeat Robbie Lawler. I think Condit's ready for it, and we'll see what happens. His losses were GSP, Woodley because of the ACL, and Hendricks. Right? Yeah. Yep. It's not like he lost to scrubs. He's lost to legit big-time names. And I think, Hendricks, Lawler, split decision victory the last time. It was a fight. I think Condit, Lawler is going to be a good fight, and fans are going to be excited, and I think Condit's going to win. I do.
And you have arguably the most important person in your corner with that argument, in that GSP thinks Condit is going to win. Yeah. And no one knows the welterweight division better than GSP. But GSP has never fought Lawler. And I call Lawler the anti-GSP when they fight pretty much the opposite, where GSP doesn't play safe, but he plays that chess match where he controls you and wins 50-45 across the board. When Robbie Lawler could be down 4-0, but that's because he's trying to put his fist in the back of your head. And eventually he always gets there in the UFC. I think Hendricks won his last fight against Lawler, but you saw Lawler at the end of that fight, and I don't think anybody was taking that belt away from him at the end of that. Moving on. The man many people think should get the title fight is Johnny Hendricks because he beat Lawler the first time, arguably beat him the second time. Lawler ended up winning. I was surprised he didn't book the immediate rematch to begin with. Yeah. I'm very surprised they didn't book the rematch after Lawler beat McDonald, because everybody likes a trilogy fight, especially the UFC. They build it up like crazy. Hendricks beat Matt Brown. I liked the fight. Dana White didn't, but no surprise there. Hendricks is going to fight Tyron Woodley. Do you like the matchup, and who do you think is going to win?
I like the matchup even more because Woodley's obviously been in the media a little saying he's going to beat him like he's never been beat before. And I disagree with him. I'm sorry. I really don't think he's going to beat him like that. First of all, if he's going to beat him like no one's ever beat him before, I think Hendricks has never been finished. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost 100% sure, maybe 99% sure he's never been finished.
I believe you're right.
So he's going to have to finish him if he's going to beat him like anyone's never had before, and I don't think he's going to do that. I think Hendricks will grind him away. I think Hendricks is going to get the victory, and then Hendricks is going to be ready to take the next title shot then. I don't think Woodley is on – not to disrespect Woodley. I don't think he's on the same level as Hendricks. I think Hendricks is a legit champion. People were mad that he didn't get the title rematch, and I think it shows for a reason because he's one of the best fighters out there, and I think he's going to show that against Woodley.
All right. We've talked about fights that we're very excited for. We've talked about fights that we're not excited for. You talked about Paul Felder versus Ross Pearson. You broke the story. You broke it down. Are there any other fights out there that you can think of that you don't think is getting enough credit, or you're just excited for in general?
I think of fights that aren't getting credit. Honestly, right off the top of my head, I can't. I'm trying to think. I don't have any off the top of my head.
I am personally excited for two fights right off the top of my head that I don't think people are talking about. One of them kind of, but it's being undershadowed. I'm very excited for Joe Duffy versus Dustin Poirier at lightweight in Dublin. I think Joe Duffy is – I don't like how he's being marketed as the last man to beat McGregor because that was a long time ago. They're both different. They're both better. I think McGregor's better. They're not even the same weight class anymore. I'm very excited for that. Poirier's looks like an animal since he moved up to 155. Joseph Duffy has looked like an animal since he came back from his professional boxing career. I love that fight. I'll get into my other one after you give your thoughts on that fight, but I think if Duffy can win, we have another superstar in our hand, and I would love to see McGregor fight for the belt with Joe Duffy as the co-main event at Croke Park. Who knows if that's going to ever happen, but I am very excited for that fight, especially since it's a main event, five rounds.
You mean Duffy was the last guy to beat McGregor?
I think I heard that a few
I
times.
never heard that. I haven't heard that in a while. But yeah, no, that would be awesome. I would like to see him become a star, like you said, and I think he's a beast. He ends fights now. That's what you want to see. And he's always gonna. That's what stinks though. He's always gonna have that. Oh, last guy to beat Conor McGregor. Last guy to beat Conor McGregor, which I feel takes away from his accomplishments a little because, like you said, it was so long ago. He's a new man. He's a new fighter. So we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe one day down the road we'll see him fight Conor McGregor again. If we could see, after McGregor loses to Aldo, maybe Duffy wins a couple fights. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll move weight classes or something. We'll see what can go on. What do you think?
I agree. If win or lose, I think McGregor only has a few more years at 145 pounds because he looks like a skeleton when he weighs in.
Yeah.
I've seen him backstage before weigh-ins, and he looks awful. I mean, he looks like Robbie Faber called him a crackhead. He was so skinny. I agree. I don't know how long McGregor has 145 pounds. I know he wants to move up. Aldo wants to move up. I would love to see McGregor maybe move up. If he loses to Aldo, wins a few more, maybe loses again, or better yet, wins the belt, defends it a few times, moves up, I would not be surprised if the UFC booked him and Duffy again. I know McGregor has no bad blood against Duffy. He's one of those fighters that's like, it's a good thing I lost. He helped me win. In fact, McGregor is one of the guys that helped Duffy get into the UFC. He talked him back into MMA. So I would love to see that fight again. Anyway, moving on. The other fight I'm very excited for, I'm a little biased because I am very good friends with him. I am very excited for Ryan Bader versus Rashad Evans. I think Ryan Bader should have the title shot against Daniel Cormier. No one else does. I think he does because simply put, he's on a 4-fight win streak in the 205-pound division against some very good opponents. Alexander Gustafsson got knocked down in the first round against the guy that Daniel Cormier just beat. I get why they did it. Alexander Gustafsson is a bigger star. They need that ticket into Europe, especially Sweden. So I get why they did it. Similar to Velasquez and Verdum. Velasquez is the Hispanic superstar. Gustafsson is the Swedish European superstar. I think doing what is right, a 4-fight win streak at 205 pounds, especially over some top 10 opponents, I think Ryan Bader should have gotten it. The storyline was there. I was at that weird press conference where they got face-to-face. I talked to Ryan after. He wants to fight Daniel Cormier. They were scheduled to fight twice. It fell apart both times. DC said he'd fight Ryan. Ryan said he'd fight DC. The only people that didn't want that fight was the UFC. Now Ryan's fighting Rashad Evans. And if Ryan beats Rashad Evans, you cannot say no to Ryan after that. So I am very excited for that fight. What about you?
Yeah, I'm excited. And I mean, one thing that makes me laugh is, Daniel Cormier always getting in every person that's talked about to fight him. I don't know why. You just got to always talk to him, always run his mouth. I don't know if you saw the whole Rashad Evans thing the other night.
Sure did.
A week ago. Just always doing stuff like that. And, I think he was making fun of Evans saying, you got to get through Bader first, which, I mean, he really does. Bader's a beast, like you said. His last victory was Phil Davis, which, I mean, Phil Davis is Phil Davis. John Jones made me, not like Phil Davis that much with his press conference about it. Who was that? That was Johnson, right?
Yeah, I was at that. It was Baltimore, the Baltimore Arena.
That was a good one. But I'm excited for it. I'm a huge Rashad Evans fan as well, though. He's one of those guys that helps a lot of people become MMA fans. He was a beast, back in the day. He's still a beast.
Yeah, so he won the Ultimate Fighter Season 2 as a heavyweight when he was only 5'11", and he probably weighed in at 220 pounds.
Yeah.
So there's that. Like you said, he brought a lot of people in. He has that history with John Jones. He has that friendship history thing with Daniel Cormier. But he hasn't fought since November 2013 when he TKO'd Chael Sonnen. He was scheduled to fight Daniel Cormier, blew out pretty much every part of his knee. Surgery didn't go well, more extended time. Looking out of shape. He hasn't fought in almost 2 years by the time he fights. I'm interested to see how much ring rust will take because he's not the youngest guy. It's not like he's Conor McGregor or Dominic Cruz who blew his knee and is still, when he comes back, is below 30 years old. He's closer to 40 than he is 30 at this point. So I don't know who's going to win. I think Ryan will win just because of the fact that Rashad hasn't fought in almost 2 years. I don't know if it's the co-main event. I wouldn't be surprised if they put Hendricks and Woodley in the co-main event on that card instead. That's the same fight as DC and Gustafsson. So it'll be interesting. Who do you think is going to win that fight, though?
I think Bader's going to take it. I saw, you mentioned out of shape. Same thing, Fox Sports 1. I think it was Daniel Cormier actually.
It
Was
sure
was
was.
like, you know, I'm in shape. He poked his belly, and he's like, oh, I don't feel like you're in shape. And you can see it. I mean, he's not in shape. He hasn't fought in a while. Bader's been on a tear. I think Bader's going to take it and show that he deserved the title shot, and then hopefully he'll get his title shot then.
I agree. All right, we're going to end on this. We got maybe 10, 15 minutes left. I've been teasing it for a while. We talked about the heavyweight division. We talked about all the fights you want to see, all the fights that are made now, but there's one man that can throw a wrench into all of that, and that is the great Fedor Emelianenko, who you could argue is the greatest fighter of all time. I think he's the clear greatest heavyweight of all time. Yes, he's never fought in the UFC, but when he was dominating the UFC, Tim Sylvia was the heavyweight champion of the UFC. Andrei Arlovsky was the heavyweight champion of the UFC. They left the UFC to go fight Fedor Emelianenko, and Fedor knocked both of them out. While the UFC was still young and Dana White's like, you never fall in the UFC, you can't be the greatest, he was beating Crow Cop. He was beating Big Nog. He was beating Josh Barnett. He was beating all these people. I think he is easily the greatest heavyweight of all time, probably top 3, if not the greatest fighter of all time. And if he comes to the UFC, I don't know if he deserves an immediate title shot. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him an immediate title shot. I would have loved to see him come to the UFC and then fight Kane right away for the #1 contender fight. Or better yet, we know he wants to rematch with Verdum. Verdum says he doesn't deserve it, but you're not going to say no to Fedor. So you have the champion on your side. What do you think if he comes back, because he hasn't even signed with the UFC because Bellator's still out there, and then World Series of Fighting says they're going to whatever. We're not even going to talk about him going to World Series.
Won't entertain.
It's not going to happen. Do you think he goes to the UFC, A, and B, do you think he deserves an immediate title shot?
I think he's going to come back to go to the UFC. Well, I didn't even think about the Velasquez thing. That would have been awesome. That's a good idea right there. I would love to see him fight Verdum again. He lost to him. He's arguably the greatest fighter of all time, the greatest heavyweight of all time, like you said. I think that, the immediate title shot maybe is a stretch, but I think if he comes back and maybe fights one fight, it would have been nice to see him fight Velasquez and then show that, he's ready to go. I would love to see him fight Verdum again. That would be awesome. I would watch it. I know you would watch it too. Everyone would watch it. It'd just be something to watch. I would
watch Fedor fight in World Series of Fighting.
We all watched Kimbo versus Shamrock. We would watch. This would be way better to tune into. It would be something that we'd actually want to watch, not for humor.
And to go off of that, because Fedor hasn't signed, and what's very weird to think is with the UFC's new pay scale, first-time fighters get $5,000, which means Fedor would fall into that $5,000 fight. You're not going to want to pay. Fedor's not going to take $5,000 for a UFC fight. What I've heard is the UFC might throw in that he might be just straight become a Reebok fighter, just like Conor McGregor, just like Paige Van Zandt, just like Rory McDonald. You see them signing people in regions. Yair Rodriguez was signed to Reebok. He's from Mexico. Rory McDonald's from Canada. Jacare Souza's Brazil. Conor McGregor's Ireland. They need Russia, especially because you got all these like Ali Bagutinov, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Rustam Khabilov, all these fighters from Russia that are blowing up right now. Fedor could become the face of Reebok in Russia. I think they will use that to their benefit. The Bellator cannot offer Reebok. The UFC can. I think if he does come to the UFC, he will just sign straight to Reebok and make the 7 figures that he deserves, because he's not getting paid below $1 million to fight, and nor does he deserve anything less.
Especially $5,000.
Exactly. But he has that history with Scott Coker. Scott Coker has that Viacom wallet. Viacom, what I have heard, doesn't want to open their entire bank to Scott Coker right away. They're seeing how he does. He's had the Tito Bonner. He had Fedor Kimbo. If they might open the bank for Fedor, and I'm going to throw this out there, this card. Keep in mind, this could be on Spike TV. They might go on pay-per-view. They went pay-per-view with King Mo and Rampage. If you see a poster that says Fedor versus Kimbo, would you watch it? And do you not think that is the most ridiculous thing ever?
Fedor, Kimbo. I love Kimbo, though, because I don't know about you, but I used to watch those street fights all the time.
Of course I did.
my friends and I, we'd be like, "Oh, did you see the new Kimbo street fight?" I would watch it for sure. That would be hilarious. He would get his butt kicked, I think, but it would still be worth watching. I thought he was going to get his butt kicked by Shamrock, which he almost did. If he at least had some bit of muscle left in him, he could have ended the fight. But, I would watch it. I think you would watch it. Would you watch it?
I absolutely would. I mean, well, look at this. Fedor versus Kimbo on Spike TV breaks every single ratings record in the history of combat sports on one night. Like, that could be the only fight on the TV. Put Will Brooks in the co-main event. Cool. After he wins that, Bellator goes into pay-per-view another time, takes all of their champions, you got Patricky, you got Patricio Pitbull, you got Will Brooks, you got all the champions, all the champions, the stars you're trying to make. Put them in the co-main event and below. Put Fedor in a catchweight fight against Tito Ortiz in the main event of a Bellator pay-per-view, regardless of whether Tito wins his next fight against can't even remember his name off the top of my head. English dude. Tito versus Fedor are two names everybody in the world will recognize. People will buy that pay-per-view. They will sell over 100,000 pay-per-views, which is what their last one was. Put all of their champions on the undercard, and the Bellator has a crazy card that is like just the definition of a freak show fight. Everyone will watch that. What do you think?
I think Bellator should give you a call because that's a brilliant idea. I love it.
Right.
That'd be sick. That would be so awesome to watch. It'd be good for Bellator too because everyone's going to tune in, and for the people that only know MMA as UFC, they get to see some of Bellator's best guys too. So maybe they could catch some new fans as well. Yeah, it'd be good for them.
And I think Scott Coker is the key in that. For all we know, Nick Diaz might ask for his release. Dana White loves Nick Diaz. I'll probably let him go. Nick Diaz goes over to Bellator. Throw Nick Diaz on that card against Paul. Make Diaz versus Paul Daly. Better yet, make Paul Daly versus Josh Koscheck on that main card, and give Nick Diaz somebody else. Like, sign KJ News. Make KJ News Nick Diaz 3, and you have just the weirdest fight card ever. But also a fight that, like, Josh Koscheck is on like a 4-fight losing streak, and he could very well fight Paul Daly on the main card of a Tito Ortiz versus Fedor fight card. But that's all hearsay. I still think he's going to go to the UFC.
Yeah, I agree.
We're pretty much out of time. We got 2 minutes left. Jeremy, do you want to mention anything at all about mixed martial arts, combat sports, anything in general? Throw it out there.
Last thing just to add, I just like how the sport's growing. Like I said, Conor McGregor, love him, hate him. He's good for the sport. A lot of my friends, like I said, they don't watch MMA as much, but they're tuning in now. I think it's getting bigger and bigger, and I hope it keeps growing. Guys like us, this is our job. We love it. So hopefully that it keeps expanding and it keeps getting bigger, and hopefully there's more superstars. John Jones kind of hurt the sport a little by, fizzling out, getting arrested. They need more superstars like Rousey and people that are going to, be role models in the sport. We need more role models like that. And I think if we can keep doing that and the sport keeps growing, sky's the limit for MMA. And legalize in New York.
There you go. Legalize in New York, because as soon as that fight happens, John Jones is going to fight Chris Weidman. John Jones versus Chris Weidman in Madison Square Garden. Make it happen, New York. I'm going to finish with, I am expecting for the next few weeks, like I always hear, McGregor is going to be on free TV coaching Ultimate Fighter. Rousey's all over the place. They're going to start talking about boxing is dead again, like they do every other month that when Mayweather's not going to fight. Mayweather's fighting Andre Berto. That should put these arguments to rest. And even better, Canelo Alvarez is fighting Miguel Cotto. If you like combat sports and you're knocking that fight and you're knocking boxing instead and that fight exists, shut up, because you don't know what you're talking about. That fight is amazing. I think that is Robbie Lawler versus, better yet, Robbie Lawler versus Condit is the mixed martial arts equivalent of Canelo versus Cotto. I am so excited for that. Getting the Golovkins out there. I am so excited for being combat sports.
Don't forget Wilder. Deontay Wilder.
Deontay Wilder's out there. Tyson Fury's fighting Klitschko. If you're a mixed martial arts fan and you're arguing that boxing is dead or dumb or just boring, shut up, because you don't know what you're talking about. Boxing is awesome right now. It might be shallow at the top, but it is awesome. Jeremy, any last words?
Nope, that's it. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to Mondays with the MMA Corner News Show.
All right. For Jose Youngs, that's Jeremy Klump. We're out of here. Josh should be back. You can see his ugly mug. You won't hear me talk as much. Me and Jeremy will make fun of Josh the whole time for his dumb thoughts. We're out. See ya.
Take care.